Another week, another video. You must think that I am awfully fond of the sound of my own voice by now. Okay, let's have a look. We're going to talk about study unit 5, the brainwashing controversy. Always a source of excellent exam questions. Have a look at the learning outcomes. After working through this study unit, you should be able to explain the origin of the brainwashing controversy. Okay, it's in the material, you'll find it. Describe the major viewpoints in this controversy. In other words, does brainwashing actually exist, or is it just a fancy name for things that people don't like about new religious movements? Critique the viewpoints. Now that's the tricky one, and I'm going to give you some pointers there. Identify the sources of tension between NRMs and dominant society. Explain the underlying interpretive perspective of the two sides. Alright, so you already know that there are two sides. You've got prescribed articles in your reader that you can work through. There are activities. So I'm not going to baby you through these steps. I want to ask you a question. Let's assume for a second that there's some truth. Now, maybe not the entire truth, but there's some truth to this idea that you can influence somebody to become something he wasn't before. Okay, let's just accept that. Okay. And that some of the new religious movements are doing this. I don't know if any of you have seen an old 1960s movie called The Manchurian Candidate. They recently remade it, but go try and see the original. It's a great movie. And in that Manchurian Candidate, some American soldiers are captured by, I think it was Koreans, and they are programmed to go and assassinate people and so on. So it's very controversial if you can get people so far. If you can really brainwash somebody to go and assassinate somebody who normally he wouldn't have anything against. But more moderate forms of behavior modification can be observed, do exist, right? Now, the question is this something that's unique to new religious movements? Okay, and I hammer on this point because I want to hear from you what you think. If you are drafted into the army, South Africa, we don't have a draft anymore, but we used to have, at least for white males. They have to, within 3 months, take somebody who's been trained whole life to say, yes, please, thank you, and not to hurt anybody ever. That's what your parents teach you. And they have to train you to the point where you're willing to take a rifle and shoot somebody. And that got this down to a science. They know exactly how to do it. Sleep deprivation, high levels of physical exercise. Oh, yes. Isolation, all the things you see in brainwashing. The armies of the world have been doing for decades, maybe centuries. And so, another example, if you belong to a church and you go to a youth camp, what do we see? Isolation, because you're isolated, you can't reach physically your parents out on a farm somewhere. Lots of physical exercise. Again, sleep deprivation, So they are trying to do the same things that we see in brainwashing in a more civilized way, one hopes, and to make you a good card-carrying member of that particular church. Right? Advertising. Advertising knows a million tricks to make you buy stuff that you don't actually need. So is this brainwashing? Where does normal processes of people influencing other people end and brainwashing begin? There's no clear, definite answer for that. Everybody has to work out their own answer. Okay? And I want you to work out an answer. So, is there a role for this word brainwashing over and above what regular churches do, what advertisers do, what the army does? Is there actually something so radical, so fundamentally different that's done by new religious movements that we can retain this word brainwashing? Okay? Now, remember that brainwashing, there are people, the so-called deprogrammers, who have a financial stake in convincing parents mostly that their children have been brainwashed and they must be deprogrammed, which means brainwash them again in the other direction. Now maybe those guys started out as ex-members themselves and they've turned their lives around in that, but now they made a business out of it, and so now they have a very real interest in maintaining this idea that your children have been brainwashed and we can unbrainwash them. Just something to keep in mind. Right? On the other hand, there are also people, mostly academics like me, who have an ideological stake in saying people are all the same and we must respect everybody, and if you belong to a religion that says you must walk around naked wearing a frog on each shoulder, or whatever crazy thing, then you must respect that. That's what people like me will say. We have an ideological interest in respecting everybody. Well, in reality, respect only goes up to a point. Now, last week I posted up a news report on the persecution of the Rohingyas in Burma, Myanmar, if you prefer. See, so now if you look at the persecutors, the soldiers who are doing this, to what extent can you say, well, we must also respect their beliefs that these Rohingyas are subhuman and that you can kill them without any consequences? Must we also respect that? At some stage that respect everybody breaks down. And at some stage you start saying, okay, this is now getting too damn weird. I'm just being honest here. We must learn to respect people as long as they are at least within spitting distance of respectability. It's not an easy decision to make. I can't give you a clear and definite answer. This is where respect stops. But it's clear that at some stage it does. Okay. So that is my little sermon for this week. Let's get... Okay. So the actual study unit is not very long, it's just 3 pages. But keep in mind that it includes some very important, 3, if I remember correctly, 3 articles. And you really should be very familiar with this, because what I've been talking about the last 5 minutes is basically the exam question I always ask. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. I deny saying that. Yeah, and maybe this year I'll have a brainwave and ask something completely different. I don't know. Okay, that's it for this week. Next week we'll be talking about mental health and NRMs. And if that idea is not enough to drive you crazy, I don't know what is. See you next week, guys.